Morning, Keith. Terry?
Hello, honey, how are you?
Oh, honey, I'm living the dream.
Bless you.
Oh, God bless. I know. I'm just waiting for those stragglers that are upstairs getting coffee. So I was hoping that we could be able to show the Tressa webinar from last week, but it's not online yet. Did anybody here see it? You saw Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, with Ray and what's her face? I can't remember her face.
Cassandra, did you not like it?
No, Cassandra got terminated. Yeah, I know she's different. Yeah, I just thought they could have said in half the time that they take to say it.
Yeah, it looked like they were taking it from the beginning.
Yeah, it drags. I guess it's for special needs. Anyways, it was introducing all these new forms and comments that I would never think to even talk about. Anyway, so here we go again. Girls! Let me just yell over to them. They're yakety yakety. Ladies! Really quiet, really quiet.
Pronto.
So they said there's 13 new forms. And we'll talk about those new forms as we're going to go forward. And anybody who's seen the video, please feel free to chirp in. Okay, so I'm gonna just push these out here. So.
By the way, Sky's the forms
Please
template.
take one and pass them around.
Web form just uploaded this morning or sometime in the middle of the night. They updated form, so.
Now, what's happening to NAR?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, NAR's got a second lawsuit and they may not be able to come up with the money, so now it looks like.
I don't feel bad. I'm sick of organized real estate taking all the money.
Yeah, well, they're now being sued, they may file for bankruptcy.
Yeah. Bring
NAR.
NAR. NAR. Yeah, the US.
Oh.
And we've got Terry on, who's got to take a big bite. Morning. Remind all you stragglers.
Yeah, Tony Shu is still around.
I
We were having
Use
doubt.
the TV, because I think that's why everyone's coming this way and not sitting there.
TV
Why don't you guys
four.
suck in?
But I'm asking.
You suck in with your chairs?
Okay, so you should.
Okay, squish, squish.
They're not using the TV. See?
Yeah, they're not.
Everyone suck together.
Yeah.
Suck together.
Because
Girls, why don't you try to squish in? You can't? Oh, can you do what you can?
So we have to memorize the numbers here.
Don't make it easy.
I don't mind.
When you've never.
So let's have.
Just use mine.
Don't use mine.
I've done 420.
And Keith, you got one? Terry's got one.
And they didn't say no such a thing, they get an extra 10 points.
Okay, folks. You, here is your list. These are all the forms as of last Thursday, I think, Wednesday or Wednesday.
But they're not.
Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to first give you the should be a package here, so these packages. So you want to just take one of the whole package. They're all one package. Package. Keith, are you gonna come and get the package? Keith? Oh. Sue? Are there any leftovers? Okay, do share these. At the end, you can have mine.
No worries.
Okay. First, of the new forms is notice of revocation. Remember when this is about a seller sharing contents of an offer. Okay, the buyer salesperson has the opportunity to put a clause in the offer on the agreement of purchase and sale that says the buyer does not want you to share their offer. If you do share their offer, then it's revoked. It's no longer a good offer. But apparently legal opinions came up and said that's not good enough. I know, that's exactly what I said. So now you need to have this form completed that basically says buyer, seller, and it has your little clause in there about revocation. Halfway down, the buyer hereby notifies the seller that this offer is, thanks, gorgeous, that this offer is forthwith revoked and null and void. So not only do you have to put the clause in the agreement of purchase and sale, and
So you do have to add the clause.
you have to add the clause in the agreement of purchase and sale, number one, step one. And step two, if they do share it, bingo, you got to notice that, to tell them, by the way, Mr. Seller, my offer is dead on the table.
So this is after, yes, like, and when they, for some reason, the seller will, like, reveal the price. So then you submit that form, or? if
Yes.
it
Or
goes with-
upon presenting.
It
the
says,
offer.
then upon written notice to the seller prior to acceptance of this offer,
So it's with your
that's the
offer.
clause.
So it's with
Okay,
your
accepted,
offer.
Yeah. Accepting is a different thing, right?
So to me, it means that when you submit your offer, you're submitting this at the same time.
I would think so. They never said that, but
That's what-
how would I know? How would I know otherwise?
Yeah.
I think it's gotta go hand in hand. So this is, our offers are gonna get larger, so there's more forms to come
No, really?
and different forms. Okay, so you understand why you're gonna use this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to form number
This
two.
one's similar to the one of the clause that if you don't do home inspection report, if you don't get a home inspection condition, if you don't, what's that one called again? You know?
Seller, buyer's direction rate conditions.
Regarding conditions.
Yeah,
right?
that's just for you to keep though. You don't submit that.
Right.
That's just for your records to cover
That's
your
true.
ass. Okay. Form number 209. I never know the numbers, but I know everybody else does. Seller's directions to share substance of offers. Here we go. So I'm a seller. I have 10 offers on the table. I decide to share. First of all, let's say that I don't have any of these do not share clauses. Okay. You know what starting. I decide I'm going to share contents. I can share a price from offer number one, a closing date from offer number two, conditions from offer number three. I do not have to share it all for one offer. But what I have to do is share to all 10 offers, right? The same information. With me? Yep, Chris?
Quick question, if I'm representing the seller and we receive an offer with this form.
I dropped dead clause,
the
yeah.
108, do we not show their information now?
Well, I mean, you could if you wanted to just nullify that offer. So, listen, you with me?
Yep.
You could share it, and I tell you, I mean, I personally would, but I mean, I'm thinking logically, if I wanted to, say that offer that I'm going to share is the highest offer in price. Say, I've got 10 offers, the 9 are also so, but the one that says do not share is the outstanding offer.
Right.
I'm going to roll, if I want to roll the dice, not saying I would, but there's an opportunity to roll the dice, share that outstanding offer to bump up all the other 9. But then you're right, then
Could be
I
a phantom offer. So.
a phantom offer.
Meaning it's a false attempt to raise the price, right? It could be.
Not a legitimate offer.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a written offer, so I have,
Written offer, but it could be from your best friend says.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna jump this and we're gonna submit to a wait to irrevocable once you share it.
I'm not saying that's not impossible.
Correct.
So assuming that it's not a dummied up offer, assuming it's a legit offer, so I've got 10. Number one of them is outstanding, the other 9 are so. If I, as a seller, want to roll the dice, share that outstanding offer, and it will be ultimately be revoked. But I want to push up the other 9. I mean, it's a strategy, right? Because I'm going to lose offer number 1. So it's going to be dead in the water.
Do we have to disclose that the offer was a do not share offer to all the other 9?
So once it's shared and the offer's withdrawn, then you have to disclose it. Now I only have 9 offers, not 10 offers.
But wouldn't you have to also?
We are not allowed to share any details from this offer to anyone.
Yeah, so no, you're right, Sue, you're right.
I'm confused.
No, okay, so I have 10 offers.
Not sharing.
I have 10 offers. One of those 10 offers says do not share. If you share, I'm gonna pull it,
Right,
okay? If I actually do share,
yeah.
then I have to go back later on and say, I no longer have 10 offers anymore. One of those 10 offers is gone, and now I have 9 offers. I don't know that you have to say why. You just have to tell the access, you have to tell the number of live offers on the table.
But the advice to your client in practice would be.
We'll be shooting in a foot, like.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that,
Just
I'm
negotiate with the other one, see whatever you say to one, you say. to
I'm just trying to
another.
say, but if you want to share, it's a strategy. You could share that one, but you're right, you're shooting yourself in the foot because that high offer now is dead in the water. I'm not saying do it.
But if you're sharing the price of all the offers,
I'm not sharing the price of all the
let's
offers.
say you are, and that one guy says he doesn't want his share, you can't just not share his. You still have to give all the prices, right?
No.
You don't.
So you give 9 out of the 10?
I can give you 9, I can give you 9 prices.
Even if the seller's direction is share the price of the offers.
If nobody, I'd have to advise my seller that if offer number 1 or 10, whatever it is, he says if I share it, his offer is dead.
Okay, so he'd revise this and say share them all but that one.
Exactly.
So can we do that? Share 9 and not 10? and
You don't have to share any, like,
If the seller wants to
If-
share.
if the seller wants to share, why would I share 10 offers? I'm gonna share the top price, right? Spread everybody out. That's the idea of sharing, right? Is it not?
But you
Yeah,
wouldn't want to lose that top offer if they.
No,
say-
I'm saying okay, let's back it up. It's just hypothetical.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in practice, it's gonna look different.
In the real world, I personally probably would never share that one that says don't share, because I wouldn't want to lose them. Right? It would be to me too much of a risk to take. I would tell my seller the risk. If they say roll the dice, I would make bloody sure I put that in writing too. Right? But in real world, I wouldn't share that, the one that says don't share. If it was my
Still
top offer.
negotiate without sharing, right?
You don't have to share it all, but the seller says, I want to share. Okay,
But
and
then you discuss with your seller what the pros and cons of that. And I'm
Exactly.
Sure, you could convince them to not share.
well, that's up to the seller.
Of course,
okay.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, if they want to share, so this is the point of this right here, guys. If you have 10 offers and you decide to share a price from offer number 1 and a closing date from offer number 2 and conditions from offer number 3, you have to detail it on here. So you have to detail, see where it says additional comments? You have to detail what exactly you're doing. You can't just say, oh, share, here's the price, here's the closing date, blah, 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 blah.
Cherry pick and take the best.
Well, you can cherry pick, but you have to detail your cherry pick. You're cherry picking. Okay, so we're all this additional comments, you only give us 3 lines. I don't know how that's gonna work, but I've got, and we ever end up back in multiple offers.
But Carole, in terms of like, what we are doing is you would say that, I revealed the deposit. And then you say offer number, like number or the name of.
Well,
the
that's just
agent?
it. I personally would probably
Just to
number,
identify.
I would number my offers, because how am I gonna identify them here? I would number them, physically number them. Because we're gonna see them in our hand, right?
Yeah.
So I would physically, for me, I already figured in my head, I would number my offers. Number 1, I'm sharing the price. Number 2, I'm sharing the conditions. Number 3, I'm sharing the closing date. And then the seller has to sign off on it. And remember, the seller can change their mind at any sweet time during the whole negotiation process.
And if you don't share the offer from that one that has that notwithstanding clause.
It's still a good clause. It's still a good offer.
Okay.
Okay, are we good? Detail.
If you're cherry picking, for example,
Uh-huh.
you're picking all the best things about.
Exactly.
There's no perfect offer, right? So you're essentially creating that? Is that, like, I'm confused.
You don't have to even tell the other side you're cherry picking. What you have to do
You have to
is,
say where they're from, like which offer they're from.
no, you don't.
To
You
the
have
Seller.
to the seller,
Oh my God.
to the seller. On the paper, you have to say it.
Okay.
But when you come, so if you're the buyer, your buyer offer number 5, and I've got 10 offers, and I'm gonna say to an email that says, I have a price of one price, I have another closing date. I don't have to tell you where I got them from. They could all be on one offer, they could be on any of the 10 offers.
Okay.
That's my business and my seller and I.
What hell of a car wreck.
Yeah, it is one hell of a
really
car
is.
So
wreck.
this is more to protect ourselves, to have all this documented, and then should something. go
course.
wrong, it-
Okay, so I'll cover your ass. Okay, that's slip. 216. The seller acknowledgement. For self-represented. So in the old days, we would call this a FISBO. Okay, but there's no advice, as we all talked about. So self-represented, we give them nothing, only facts, right? No advice, no professional, none of that. They call it our knowledge, which is a little scary.
You call them what?
Pardon me?
What'd you say?
I said we're only give them facts. They call it, don't give any of our knowledge. I said, which is a little scary. Some people don't have a lot of that to give.
Self-represented, why do we need to declare our insurance? And why would they even sign a self-represented one?
Well, this is just acknowledging that they agree to be self-represented. And they allow us to put a soul sign at the end of the day. Page 2. Clause number 11. This is when the seller says, because if the seller is self-represented, we have no rights of anything with that seller, right? But we want to put a soul sign. I work for the buyer. I have a buyer. I went to a self-represented party who owns a property, their seller, and I want to put a sold sign. This gives me the consent to put a sold sign up and also to disclose the sold price. It
But
says,
that's before closing, because after closing, you can do all that with your buyer.
With your seller,
No,
Yes.
with your buyer.
with your buyer. Oh.
with your buyer,
Because you're
confused now.
representing
This
the
is
buyer.
You're representing the buyer.
the seller acknowledges and clause number 6, the seller acknowledges and consents that the sale and related information regarding the sale of any property sold by the seller through the brokerage may be retained and disclosed by the brokerage for reporting, appraisal, and statistical purposes for such other use, but the
This is
appropriate.
in a situation
In
where
connection
you
with the
are the
listing.
buyer and you're dealing with a self-represented seller, correct? That's what this form is
Mhm,
about.
exactly.
So you're saying here in clause number 11, if you want to put in a sold
Clause number
sign.
6. It's use and distribution.
Yeah, but
I'm
she's just
talking
saying
about the
the
sold
clause.
sign.
Oh, the sold sign. Okay, go.
That's the last thing we discussed. If you want to put in a sold sign at that property that you represented a buyer with a seller who was self-represented, then you can only really put it in after the buyer moves in. Because then it doesn't matter what the seller thinks at that point. This is just
No.
if you want to put a sign before.
Oh,
it
yeah,
closes.
yes.
Before he closes.
yes.
Before he closes.
When you and I do the deal, you're the seller, I'm the buyer. When the deal is it's done, accepted, I would have put my sign in the lawn, whether I represent the seller or not.
Why would a FISBO want to allow you to put your sign? Like, I don't understand.
They may not allow that, so they may
Yeah.
cross
That's
that
why
out.
they made it so that you could.
You have to
initial it.
initial it to
Yeah.
get authority.
But they might be happy, be like, yeah, you brought me a buyer, I sold it, I saved.
I don't know,
it."
I mean, usually
way-
you're doing it
Put
for-
aside.
you're doing it for several reasons, right? You want no commission and you don't want the neighborhood to know about your.
Right.
Yeah, you're
sale,
operating
right?
under
Yeah,
Secret
right,
Service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the declaration of insurance, that would be if you hand the deposit in and something happens with,
My brokerage.
then that's why you want the
Declaration of insurance.
sign. Because if something happens to the deposit, your insurance covers.
Okay.
Your insurance
By the
covers.
way,
Now, quick
Carole,
question.
self-represented seller, okay, if you were, so then the deposit, he may say that, oh, I want deposit will goes to my lawyer, for instance.
He may.
He may.
He or she may, yes, right.
So these
So
trans.
We always try we always try to convince them that we hold a
That
deposit.
we hold.
So sorry?
Yeah.
We hold a deposit.
Yeah,
Because the seller has no rules and regs when they have to pay out money, right? We have rules and regs to pay out money.
of course.
So this transaction might not even be born on the MLS system, right?
That's right.
But a seller does not have to sign that.
No.
Right? I mean, a seller can do whatever they want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So-
Yeah.
Absolutely. A seller,
You may put this forth and they're gonna go, you know.
Buzz
You
off.
know, buzz off, yeah.
I know, absolutely. A seller can tell you to buzz.
Right.
Yeah, but it's up to us to try to get them to sign it.
What I want signed.
Protecting
what
who?
I want signed is the.
Is the commission, yeah.
That's it. Forget about it.
Exactly.
Well, you want this sign to protect yourself down the road.
But they could say, forget this paperwork, give me the deposit, I want the commission to agree with.
I realize that. I realize all that, but let
I
me
mean-
tell you, if a seller thinks that they got screwed over, they were self-represented by you somehow. When you go to a hearing, these guys, Rico's gonna wanna see all this crap.
Chances are you probably get in trouble because your competition might see a sign that just went up with a sold
Full
sign.
sign, that's what I'm thinking.
And they'll
I
be
think
like, how did that
that's
ever,
the problem.
how did that ever happen? It was never on the MLS, nothing.
Yeah,
So
You have to cover.
But just like an exclusive listing, was never on the MLS.
and the exclusive listing is also another issue because.
I'm just trying to say, that's another issue, but the sign itself is no different than an exclusive listing.
So you're gonna need a new sign that says feasible, sold.
Okay, are we good for 216 or relatively good? Are we as clear as mud?
Yeah.
So is this like a new posting or like a little bit?
No, mere postings when the seller pays the commission. Here, the
So
seller
it's
pays
on
me
the
squat.
So it's.
And this is, and
For
this,
sale by owner.
and there's agents and relationships. Here, there's, the seller doesn't pay you anything. Buyer pays.
This is like when we were commercial land selling in 1980s, but it was exactly which is.
Yeah, this is a total FISBO when the seller just says, as Keith said, show me the paper and that's all I want to see from you. Show me the agreement of purchase and sale. Okay, let's flip over, this 217, I don't see this, it's a schedule.
One.
Let's go, 271. Here we go. Everybody in this brokerage is self-represented. When you're gonna do a listing agreement, this is the one you need now. 271, seller designated representation agreement. Okay,
Sorry, I'm just noticing here that we missed 256. Landlord representative.
I'm not doing those.
Oh. okay.
Yeah. You got, that's why I gave it to you, because I'm basically covering buy and sells.
Oh,
And what you see with me,
Yeah.
you'll see the mirror one for landlord tenant. Right? If we do all that, we'll be here forever and a day. Okay. Before the old form had where you put your name, and it applied for either brokerage or designated representation. Now there's a listing agreement for brokerages and there's a listing agreement for designated representatives. And 271 is the one for us. It's the only one we will be using in this brokerage. Okay, so good.
Oh, so if I've used one in the last few days.
That's okay.
That's not this one, is that a problem?
No,
No.
because to be fair, we were taught this last Wednesday, but as of last night at 4:30, they still were not web forms.
Yeah.
They are this morning though.
It took a few days even for web, the other one, Skyflow, so.
Yeah.
It started coming
So
up.
I think
few at a time.
Rico and is going to have to give some consideration when
Yeah.
there are hearings. That because of the lag in timing, okay, that forms may not be up to snuff with everybody right away. There's got to be some consideration given for this. Because myself, I was doing a listing, was it listing? A listing, I think, the day it came out, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have the right form. And they weren't on web forms.
So you're suggesting don't use 200 anymore, use 271?
You can't use 200 anymore. You have to use
Yeah, I
271.
just saw that.
And
Yeah.
has it been updated on our own templates as well? you were
That's,
Skyflow,
Yeah.
yes.
so Keith, you have to use 271.
But
That
web forms,
automatically does it.
So this is like historic moment,
Yeah,
that for the
you can
first
go there.
time in.
no, I had to
listing
replace
the
it. I had
this listing agent name will be on the first page of yeah.
Well, it was on the previous one too.
No, well, not on the first page, it was.
No, it was, but we did the broker one that came out when Tressa first started,
Yeah. it
which
was.
applied to brokerage and DRs.
Yeah.
This is just our own little listing agreement for DRs. The other one applied to brokerages listing and DR listings. This one is just for DRs, designated representatives. It is a historic moment though.
It starts. Remember
That
this,
make it serious.
Us and Mr.
where you
Trump.
are, in your chair.
Okay, so go to,
9:57 AM. Don't forget this.
okay, so go to the schedule. A.
In the capture picture.
So you're gonna have.
I will. I have no-
Okay, 271 Schedule A, guys. So mine have to give you now. Here we go.
271 Schedule A.
Take one and pass it on, please. Carrie, I'll get you paper as soon as I'm done. Cause I know you can't see this print. I know, but I'll get you paper. Sue, did you get a copy?
No, I
It's still being amended.
Yeah.
I hope there's enough for everybody. If not, Ed and I can do shares these. It's Alex. Okay, and the shares these down there, girls.
It looks like a car dealership, like a
Okay.
mechanical.
You got it. What am I
I got
giving
it,
you
I got
for? Okay, so now they want us, I say they, Rico, the act, they want us to detail what we're offering on our listing. When we go to get a listing, what do we say we're gonna do? Because remember, we say we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and this, and this. And a lot of times it's never in writing. Sometimes it's in writing, and sometimes it's on our marketing materials that we give to people. They want us to detail it. So this is some of the examples that they gave us. And you'll find this all in the RICO information guide too. This is just basically a summary. So there's mechanical things that we're gonna do. We physically do things. And there's things that we do for our advice, our knowledge, advisory things. So this is a sampling of what we could put on this Schedule A. Julio has prepared. Prior to this, he prepared this. Which is basically mechanical.
So all listing agreements should have the Schedule A.
According to RICO. Again, were those, and maybe Sue and Alex. Oh, I forgot to give one for. Keith.
Okay, what do you mean by accessories?
Like if you're only gonna do staging, but rather than putting furniture, if you're just only doing
Puff pillows,
pillows and
slankies and
stuff.
I always put that in with the thing. Yeah, okay.
odds and ends, I would call it. Did you get, is there one for Keith, please?
Yeah.
No, take it now.
Mine, I can.
No, take it now, then the girls can share it, and who doesn't get it can come and see me, I
Me and
will.
Monica are sharing a whole.
Okay, party on.
So we'll just make a.
Okay, so this is what Julio had initiated prior to Tressa. And he is going to update it with the advisory ones. So you'll see that most of these things are mechanical. I mean, you can use them or not use this, it's up to you. This is just a tool. Whether you want to utilize it or not, it's your call in
No, this
business,
is
right?
good. Yeah.
Okay, so Julio will update it with a lot of the mechanical items are on there. But the advisory ones are not. That comes from our brains, which is scary, and our skill. Pricing strategies, CMAs, how do we deal with conditions, counter offer options, pros and cons of sharing, strategies competing, advice on property disclosure, advice on potential uses of property. Just a multitude of our advice. But I caution you, what you put on here, somebody can hold you to later on. So if you're going to put it down in print, you better make sure you do it. Because God knows somebody's going to hold you to that later on. I
And
don't see you did.
because you say that, I would want to put if timing permits, because if your place sells in one day,
Guys,
you're not
guys,
getting postcards out.
listen,
If your place,
go ahead, Ann. Go ahead.
I would say that you'd have to also put if timing permits, because if your place sells in one day, you're not gonna get time to do postcards, you know? It's-
She's had in a comment.
Timing and occasion, because
Timing and
the
occasion.
occasion of like maybe not having multiple offers is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a good codicil.
So I would just say plan accordingly as well, right? Because if you're signing documents today and you go tomorrow live, there's no time to do even photos, right?
yeah.
But if you
Exactly.
give yourself a week before your listing comes out, then you might have time to do the brochures and or in the postcards and send them to the printer.
But that's a good codicil. That's a good codicil.
You can do more than what it says.
You can do more, but until whatever you put down in that schedule, hey, believe me, somebody will hold you to that down the road.
There, and then you can put the bigger one.
You could put one thing or 20 things. But if you put 20 things, better make sure you do 20 things. I'm always of the policy, less is more.
Yes.
I can hold me to less, okay? So this is just something to think about, okay? I'm not saying you should put all these things down. It's just something in your job.
Even
mean, the-
open house, you may not have a chance.
Yeah,
to
you might
do
not
open
have.
house.
And the other thing is this schedule could
Listen up,
actually
guys.
help you justify how much you're charging for commission, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they ask you, okay, we want to reduce the commission, you say, what do you want me to cancel out of this, right? And then they'll be like, no, I still want the open house. Well,
That's-
somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah.
I connected back to commission.
Now, speaking of commission, just I'll throw this out there because I was gonna tell you at the end, but bringing it up. So Jim and I went on a listing appointment on Sunday afternoon, which is unexpectedly. Something that, a guy that Jim knew, he passed away, and Jim and I both knew, and we were told we were gonna get the listing. Anyways, as it turns out, we were in competition. I think we've lost it. One of the other brokerages, one of the other agents, is offered to pay the HST on the seller's commission.
What?
And they said, would I? I said, absolutely not. Never in a day. So not only do they want the charge, they want you to have little commission. So after they were after our commission already. They wanted us to pay the HST of the seller's portion on the commission. So if they had to pay 50 grand on commission and they plus the HST, they wanted me to absorb that. Can you believe it? I'm like, and plus they wanted you to cut your commission to start with. I'm like, well, I might as well go, I told them I was gonna go work at Tim Hortons. Obviously, I'm not gonna get that. Listen. Can you imagine?
Did you say that, actually?
Yeah, I did. I was not a happy girl.
Not getting the
Yeah.
listing that-
I was not a happy person. Plus, I mean, they wanted you to attend the house that's gonna be vacant, attend the house every day for insurance purposes. They wanted this, they wanted like a multitude of
Everything.
things
Wow.
for little commission and to pay their HST.
Yeah.
Ah, bite me. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Form 272. This is the only landlord one I threw in, because please do not make the mistake and use the brokerage one. This is the listing agreement when you're doing a landlord for a lease, okay? For DRs. Okay, same old, but it's for when you're doing a lease. Okay? I don't think there's any more to say about that. And there's a schedule again. Say, use your discretion what you're gonna put on there. You're gonna put it on, make sure you do it. Okay, this is my unfavorite form. Here we go, 299. Latent defects. Anybody who was around when they came out with SPISs, seller property information statements. That was when the seller had, it was a big list of all the things that possibly went wrong in the house, remember Keith? And anybody who's been around, and they had to say yay, yes, and they had to detail when it happened and whatever. And the listing agent had to sign it. Anyways, the buyers eventually moved in the house, they took everybody to court. They took the seller to court, took the listing agent to court, took the buyer's agent to court, and all the brokerages too. Eventually, no brokerages hardly ever use them anymore. I hear EXP uses them, but that's about it. And there's good reason for that, because it opens the seller for all kinds of liability. Now we come up with this form. Seller has to disclose any latent defects. What's a latent defect, guys? You ready?
This fall. Yeah.
Something that's not visible. I walk through the house, something that I cannot see as a home inspector or a buyer, or buyer's agent walking through a property. It's something that's hidden, it's not visible to the eye. So this says, the following information is provided to the listing brokerage and their designated reps to be disclosed with other information pertaining to the listing property. Members are encouraged, that's all of us, listing and buyers, agents, are encouraged to undertake numerous steps of discovery, disclosure, and documentation. And if you'll see the bold under prospective buyer, this is it. The seller client hereby advises the brokerage or the DR of the following, which may be latent defects or potential latent defects of the listed property. Exactly. Thank you. I 100% agree.
Furnace, air conditioner,
What's that?
wiring.
Okay, but you,
Yeah, but you know-
okay, just stop, let's stop. Potential latent defects of the listed property and consent to the brokerage established to disclosing to the other people. That's exactly, Sue, was my issue with this form.
How could you
Potential.
foresee in the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
How could you?
Yeah.
But if it's a
So-
50-year-old furnace, you know.
Yeah, but I'm.
That's
doesn't-
not a latent defect.
My
I look at
dishwasher's
that
giving me
furnace,
trouble
I
again.
walk in the house, I look at that furnace, either I as a buyer or as a home inspector, if I choose to have one. And I look at that furnace and I see, and if I can look for a date, I can get a home inspector, whatever, that's
They're
not a
opening
latent
up
defect.
Liability.
They
That's what
are
they're doing.
opening up liability.
Exactly.
And
Thank you very
it's
much.
not
According to
a
them, they're
latent
closing on the
defect.
liability.
Yeah, but
This is
listen, the
okay.
best is yet to come here.
Mhm.
If I had a latent defect and I had it repaired. Say I had water in the house 30 years ago. I have to disclose it, and I got that, say that water was a roof leak. And I had it, and 30 years ago, and I got the roof fixed, and now hasn't leaked in 30 years, God bless. Guess what? You better disclose it.
Hey,
So
there
even
was
all those
mold.
houses that had Flooding back in that.
Bingo. And because there's a potential, but 30 years ago, there was mold in somewhere in that house.
Right.
Potential for
Ah.
mold.
Mhm. But going back to the AC, I mean, a 50-year-old, I don't think that an AC would ever.
No,
last
that's not a
50
latent
years.
defect.
That wouldn't be latent, because that's a visible thing.
That's not latent.
you can see.
Latent is something that
real.
happened that you
Nice
cannot
wall.
see. By walking through a property, you cannot see.
Or if it's blocked by a box.
Yeah.
See, you know what? I would actually scratch that out and get the seller to initial that.
What's that?
That's what I would.
That would bring a red flag. Now, as a buyer's agent, I'm gonna be sending one of these in all the time. Cause
Yeah.
I'm encouraged members are encouraged to undertake numerous steps of finding all this stuff
But
out.
how are you protecting your seller with this?
I'm not asking you to protect
To
the
the best of
seller.
your
I'm the buyer's
To
agent.
be, to not do the best of my knowledge.
So as a buyer's.
So
agent,
then
you can
it does
send
it
the
say
seller-
here
I'm
to
going
the
to.
best of my knowledge?
I'm going to.
So I
Now,
would have to add that in.
Everywhere.
Listen,
Everywhere, to the best of my knowledge.
To the
I would
best
have
of
to
my-
put to
just
the
like
best
you
of
did
my
before.
knowledge.
That's my knowledge.
I don't, it has been tested in courts.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
That's the statement includes so-called stigma, like.
No.
Like including.
A latent defect is not a
Somebody
stigma.
was murdered.
No.
No,
No.
a stigma is not a latent defect.
So you're saying you would add this in with all your offers?
I'm going to.
Unless the
For me-
body is behind the walls.
I'm sending it in.
So I would put to the best of my knowledge then, because.
I'm representing the buyer.
Because the seller
Guys,
also
listen,
is not
listen.
gonna wanna sign this.
I'm gonna submit it.
So what happens
For
if
now.
the seller doesn't sign it?
Yeah, what happens if the
Wait,
seller
wait,
doesn't?
wait.
I sent it in.
But the seller's gonna send it to his lawyer
Seller
first.
will go-
before he-
They're
I'll
not
tell
gonna
you,
send it-
nobody's
Lori,
making
this
this
is-
form.
This is gonna be done on the table.
She uses it.
I'm gonna start to use it now, and we're gonna see that I think it's gonna fade out.
Okay, so I got a question.
Go.
This might sound really stupid.
Go ahead.
So this disclosure, how does it get handed in? Like, who sees this?
With the offer
It goes with.
So from the buyer.
from the
When
buyer.
does
to
it
the
send
seller.
my-
There'll be a schedule essentially.
Schedule.
Schedule A, schedule B.
Right, got you.
It's right with the offer.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it goes
I
with the
know.
offer, but you
So
can
if
put it
you're
out
a
as a
seller-
schedule.
Listen, guys,
You just,
go.
if you were the seller and you wanted to avoid all this, I'm selling the property, even if it's a.
As is.
As is, right, and I'm avoiding all of this, either that or I'm bouncing it back and say, I'm giving you, 3 days to do your own due diligence, Mr. Buyer, and that's it.
But my job is a buyer's agent. As a buyer's
And it's-
agent.
But I bounced it back to you.
But my
Yes,
job
but
as-
but I've done my job as a buyer's
but
agent.
my job as a seller agent is I would never tell you, if I had 3 offers on the table and 2 had this, I would be going with the 3rd offer.
I know, but right now they're putting a lot of onus on us to disclose latent
But this
defects.
is really problematic because the
I'm
buyer
saying
could,
it's
the
not.
buyer
I
could end up moving in and something happens in the.
Believe
down the
me,
line,
I
And
totally,
it could be the buyer's fault, but they are finding a way to get someone else to pay. for
I
it.
totally agree with all those things. But right now, you see that they're pretty, members are us. Oh, members are us. They're strongly encouraging us to undertake numerous steps. I mean, they've put this in bold. Right now, it's a new form. They're putting more onus on us to encourage our consumers to be more forthcoming.
And that's fine.
I'm
it's
not
just
saying
the
that I like it.
potential
We-
Part is the problem.
Pardon me?
The potential part is the
Oh,
problem.
Can we say that when you're meeting with that seller for that, let's say that listing appointment or consultation or whatever, that you ask questions about the house and determine whether something could create a red flag and be like, you know what? Let's use this form just to make sure it's all in the open. But if it's a condominium, you're never gonna use that. Essentially, unless you.
Yeah, that's not true.
You gotta ask.
Condominiums have a lot of problems. Latent.
I mean, I don't know,
Such
that
as?
I don't know that you would
Well,
never use this.
collapsing underground parking. It's very
That's
typical.
not.
Yeah,
that's
but
not-
that's
not
myths.
related to the
That's, that's all
Also-
by the corporation.
Also condominiums that are cracking now and or.
Well, there's a condominium
That you
townhouses.
can see them, if you can see them, it's
Okay,
not.
guys, there's condominium townhouses too, don't forget.
Yes.
Would be mandatory or no?
No, it's not mandatory.
If you bought this, seller did it, can you refuse? the
But that
price?
doesn't mean you won't.
Listen,
receive
listen,
it when
guys,
it
listen,
happens.
hey, one at a time, go.
As the seller's, like, if you're receiving the offer, can you refuse, and this is in it, can you refuse? to
Absolutely.
sign it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, you can also use this to,
Just
as a
say-
good reason to
yeah,
get a pre-list
I
home
would say,
inspection.
like, they don't want potential.
But it again, it's latent defect.
You don't see that in
You
a
don't
home.
see that.
Guys, latent defects are not discoverable in a home inspection.
I've had that happen,
So who
actually,
wants to
so
put the
it
name on
it
it?
came out afterwards, this was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was nothing, they were my two best friends, actually, and there was nothing, I said, you can, take it to
Juliana.
Juliana and Derek, I said, you can take it to your attorney, but, and they just like, you know what, it's not worth the hassle.
This is exactly, I mean, as a buyer's agent right now, I think I'm gonna have to cover myself. Because I have to request
But how
any
do-
disclosure related.
How do we help the seller with this? Because this is like down the road, we have insurance. The seller's not gonna have insurance down the road if the buyer comes into something in their house and they wanna sue the seller because of this latent defect.
Well, this is.
Like, there's
so they
nothing
don't
to
sue the
protect the
seller.
seller.
This is actually technically protecting the seller from a lawsuit,
It's
because if
not-
they
not-
would be,
Potential.
yeah.
The shut off
Yeah.
in the winter and then
Yeah,
they have
and,
a pipe burst.
and they
Yeah.
make it like it's the seller's fault.
right, but if the seller did discover something earlier and did, some remedy, right, they could say there was mold and I removed it, here's the proof of the
You're
removal.
disclosing, but isn't there another form or something else they can use to disclose that there was something and then it's now fixed, or would that
It's be
Here.
it.
your liability? Like-
Here, you can put this right in here. That's something that
But
was,
the problem is with this potential.
The potential's the
potential's
problem.
no, listen, guys, I just said this is my unfavored form.
So
I
is
don't
it-
like it. I think it just opens up for all kinds of action down the road.
But was there
Absolutely.
something they can sign to say, we acknowledge this, but not take the potential? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Do you
To
mean,
not take that responsibility for potential
Yeah.
and disclose, to be honest,
I mean, to me, if you crossed out potential, that's a red flag too.
right?
To the buyer.
But
We could
let's-
deal with it just in the agreement of purchase and sale.
Yeah.
I mean, in your Schedule A, we're making no representation whatsoever.
Well, that's in an as is. If it's,
Well,
if it's as is.
But it's in the agreement of purchase and sale, which overrides everything, right?
Yeah, but this would be attached as a schedule, so it would be part of your agreement of purchase. and
Only
sale.
if I attach it, but
Yeah.
if I'm writing my language in Schedule.
Who are you
A,
working for? The buyer? No, if you're working with the buyer,
Right.
you're prepping your offer.
Right.
Okay, either you're selling it as is property or you're providing some warranties with the property. Which most people are. Most people are not selling as is properties.
Okay, so I have a question.
Go,
You're in a bidding war.
I
Do
know,
you add this in?
Remember,
The
it's not
seller.
mandatory.
it's not
No, I know
mandatory.
not
It's not
mandatory.
mandatory.
So you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
It's only gonna, like, it's a can of worms, because then what if they don't sign it back? Then your buyer's gonna wonder, why isn't they selling it back?
Yeah.
Signing it back.
And if
then-
something pops up later, whose fault is it gonna be?
Like it is always, isn't
Yeah.
Like, I mean.
I know, but this really brings it to the forefront, whose fault it is.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people out
I
there that will just take advantage of
Yeah.
this.
And I
Say,
also,
no, you have to
with a-
pay for it because I can't afford it.
And
And I'm gonna
I
find a
also-
way for you to pay.
you know, if you're doing a listing and the guy, and somebody says, oh, I had water 30 years ago. I wouldn't even think to put that down as an issue,
No, because it was 30 years.
30 years ago, but
Like, what if they water the entire home, like?
you're supposed to put it down. I know, I don't like it. When Julio were watching the program, I'm like, this is all bullshit.
So what
Ridiculous.
Because
what do we do?
apparently-
What should our office agents do?
Well, I think you have to use your discretion when you're using it. For now, I'm going to be
If
using
the
it.
seller discloses some of that, of, remedies that they did in the past,
Then
that
that's
say
what you can
that
do.
you will do it. Right? If they've only lived in the house for 5 years and they don't know anything about it, and nothing has happened, then you
and-
don't.
Another problem with this is like some of these houses are so old. Like, my house is 100 years old. There's gonna be potential problems.
You're-
with it.
Do you know of any potential problems with your house right now?
I'm
What
sure there
house
is.
Doesn't have
What,
potential.
exactly, what has?
No, I agree. The wording is, the wording is the catch-all.
What
How
about
long have you lived
rodents?
there?
Rodents could play in this
Yeah.
potential
Yep.
problem.
Absolutely.
Rodents are an issue in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right.
How long have you lived in your
Yes,
place?
wait a second,
Yeah.
guys.
So,
Go, Paul.
So you representing the seller, do you advise that at the very beginning of the listing, it depends obviously, let's say, when you renovated homes, a different story, but then you
No,
ask to
not
sell it, to
necessarily.
Not
sign
necessarily.
the old SPIS or?
No, I wouldn't be doing any
I would tell the
SPIS.
seller, don't sign it. We'll forward it back, the auditor sign it back without that. That's what I would do.
Yeah,
And then
I
see what happens
see
at
what
that point.
happens.
I too will not, as a listing side, I
Yeah,
wouldn't be dealing with
I
it.
wouldn't
If I
do
get it as if I'm the listing
don't
side
think
and
so,
it comes
too.
with an agreement,
You
I
don't
will
think it's
probably
gonna last?
advise them, let's not deal with that.
I don't, well, Carol.
Yes.
This is Holly.
Guys, listen, one at a
Form
time.
is optional, so we've chosen not to use the form in this case, no, I'm just saying, the seller's responsibility is still to advise of latent
Yes.
problems,
Yes.
so they don't have to advise of anything that's been fixed.
They do.
If they use the form, they do.
Well, they're supposed, whether you use the form or not, apparently according to Rico, you're supposed to, even if it's been fixed. And I have a problem with that too, because even if I had something that I had water and I remedied it, I just did one in the fall with water and we remedied it. I would have to disclose that, but it was all fixed. There was nothing to talk about. But according to this now, what the act is asking you to bring out everything that's ever happened with the house,
Regardless
basically.
of whether you use the form or not. You still have to do.
This just is proof that you've done it, that's all.
When you guys do
Wait, a
that,
sec, wait, guys, listen, Julia,
Prior to this form, prior to this form, because this is a new form.
Yeah.
uh-huh,
What form did you use?
No form.
No.
Just
So
verbal.
that was- If you don't. use the form, let's-
well, there wasn't a form like this. There wasn't a form like this,
So there
no,
was no like disclosure.
no,
forms?
no.
Oh.
This is because consumers have been complaining to the government, buyer consumers, that they bought a place and whatever, they got a problem now and nobody knew about it. It turns out it was a latent suit. It was a latent defect. And so what the government's got in the act, I say the government, which was Rico, has got in the act that to bring all of us to question all the issues about a house. That's now or ever was.
So you should bring this up if you have a listing, with your listing, that this could be a potential form that a buyer will bring in.
I'm gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
But the
that's
buyer is
what-
not gonna bring the form. The listing agent is gonna bring the form.
No,
No.
no, this is from the buyer's side. The
No,
buyers
you
can
can't have the buyer feel this stuff.
No,
This has to
no,
come
no.
from the time of your listing.
I'm gonna send this form with the offer,
You're gonna
and I'm expecting the seller
To
to
disclose
complete
that.
it.
In
complete it.
writing,
Tell me what's going
whereas
on.
before. it
See,
could be-
Okay, guys, yo, Carla,
So if you choose not to use this form, and the act says that you need to disclose if you've had water in the basement, where do you disclose it if you don't use this form? Are you supposed to disclose it?
well, you could make a clause. And you can add a clause to your offer, to your agreement purchase and sale. The buyer acknowledges that the seller has disclosed that 1969, we had water, which was remedied in 1969.
So as a listing, that's what you're supposed to do.
In our schedule, you would create a schedule C as a listing agent.
If you wanted to, and put it on your B if you wanted to.
Wanted to, or you're supposed to.
Okay.
That's where I'm just.
Yeah, the act-
I don't want to.
The act is trying to
I also don't
get,
wanna sued.
the act is trying to get more information out for the consumer. It's just that we all, it's a very squiggly line we're all walking, right? If you start talking, oh, I had water in 30 years ago and then I had mold in 10 years ago. Like if I'm a buyer, I'd be like running down the street. That's the
Well, the
issue.
buyer's gonna run down the street, if with every single one, because even if you have a brand new home, the contractor may not, the builders may
I
not
know,
have
but when you
done
start,
it properly.
but when you start
right?
bringing
It's
all
like-
this into the forefront, it just highlights it, go.
I'm just curious about the legal side of it. So for example, you submit this form with your offer.
I would as a buyer.
So the seller accepts the offer, but you don't sign this. But you don't want the offer without this paper, but
Well, that's up to you as a buyer, if you accept the
but
offer.
it's already accepted.
Not
They-
if they
they
accept they
didn't-
don't
No,
wanna sign
because
it.
if you make that a schedule, you'd have to initial a
Yeah,
change.
right, yeah.
Okay.
So just technically is the buyer's agent, he put the details of the, let's say, property structure defect.
Well, the buyer's agent wouldn't know.
The sellers.
It's up to the
We're asking
seller,
it's a
it's up to the
seller's
seller to
responsibility. So
complete it,
basically,
right?
As a seller, you're disclosing that, you had a crack in the foundation and it was remedied in whatever.
So I understand, so you feel whatever the details except those, and you expect that the seller will put something there, yes, or?
I think.
Well, I don't expect anything. I'm offering to the buyer, to the seller, to give them an opportunity to disclose anything they know about the property, basically. In writing.
But they are having to write it down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well,
That's
that's,
the
If the seller
question.
agrees, then they'll write it down. If they don't agree, they won't sign
Exactly.
anything, they'll just say. yeah.
Exactly.
So the buyer agents write down, yes?
No.
no, the buyer agent write down something they don't know about.
So the buyer is gonna fill out
That's
this
all.
I think it's with that intent. I think it's like a SPIS. When you're doing the listing, you talk to the seller tells you that, you fill it up, then you put it as a schedule.
Okay, listen, what Julio had to say.
You could do that.
This-
So there's two ways of it.
Yes.
Either one, you attach with your offer and be like, seller, please fill it out, send it back to me, which hardly they would do that. Or when you're having that listing presentation and there was an issue and you advise the seller to fill this form and put it as a schedule so that anybody submitting an offer can download it, acknowledge it and send it back.
It's, if you do it like that, it's like this BIS. It's like the solar property information statement. It's right in your
But
face.
because it's not mandatory, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't
Like,
have to
what
do
if
it.
you-
Just
well,
like
let-
these
yeah,
fixes or whatever it was.
correct. But
But you could just attach this to the listing like a.
Yeah, but you know
what-
You could.
But technically, there's
This guy-
still the
one at a
risk
time.
that in 2 years, if there was mold and now there's some medical issue going on, that they could sue the seller and you
But they have to
and the
prove
brokerage.
that it was
Uh,
there.
Well, apparently they're doing this form because the legal system has allowed these lawsuits and have granted the wins to the buyers. Right? And now the seller's gotta pay that. That's why they're doing it now.
So, right now, as it stands, like before this, when a buyer would take over ownership of a home that they just closed.
Mhm.
And I don't know, a week later, everything just falls apart.
They found the mold?
They can go within a 2-year period after buying back, can't they? That's what I.
I don't know if it's 2 years. I don't know what,
Yeah, I don't
how
know what
many,
that timeline
I don't know what the timeline is, but yeah, you can go after them.
I never.
And then you gotta prove that they knew it, right?
Yeah.
That they knew it and they hid it. It's different if they had it and they had no knowledge.
Cause it's happened where you move
But how would
in,
you
I
pay
had a seller move in, or buyers move in and, the I don't know, a couple of appliances just come.
Yeah, that's not like,
Right,
Yeah.
but, it happens, right?
that doesn't apply.
Manjit's
Yeah.
case is one, no? Where they removed a wall, a retaining wall. Right?
Yeah, but that,
And they didn't disclose, well, actually it was disclosed in the status.
it wasn't a stats. No, it wasn't disclosed.
So pre-inspection is a good idea, of course.
No, listen to me.
But they
Listen,
don't show
listen.
lot-
No, I'm just.
Inspections have nothing to do with latent defects. Zero.
Wait,
They
you can't see that.
Can't see
Yeah,
them,
yeah. Oh, yes, yeah, I understand, I understand.
So
I'm
if-
saying in general, pre-inspection, like, so the
That's
buyer is more.
that's up to you.
That would help.
Some people like pre-inspection, some people don't. It's your call, okay? But I'm just trying to say that there is all about the consumer knowing what they're buying. Okay? And the consumer making an educated decision if the seller refuses to, one of these forms not to fill it out, is that they want to proceed. Okay? But remember, the onus is on the members, which is all of us.
So as a listing agent, would you want, like, I'm still.
As a listing agent, no, I
No,
wouldn't,
I
I wouldn't
wouldn't
want,
want the
no.
liability,
It
right?
depends. So
No,
I,
I personally wouldn't want one.
yeah, I live in a rental house. And the owner was my friend. He rented the house to us. And one day there was a sewage backup, right? Suddenly the basement started to fill up, right? And of course it was remedied, but if he asked me to sell the house, and I know this because I live there, I would have him fill one of this, because you never know if, even with the
Yeah, but if you,
drying.
yeah, so yeah, it was remedied, but then in 5 years, the same thing happens again, and now your seller
Exactly.
on.
Or it
now
could
they
have
can
been
sue
that
the
some
seller for
mold
all the damage.
formed behind
too.
the hot water tank or something.
Him too, he had knowledge. As it turns out, he just actually lives there, so he has knowledge.
But
How
what
he
is-
gained the knowledge is irrelevant.
Is there a point where the seller would disclose, like, what if they say, well, it's a latent defect, I don't know what's happening behind the walls, or I don't wanna disclose, or maybe.
Behind the
they don't
walls,
tell
just-
you. What if they don't tell you? How
If
do
there's
you
mold
know?
behind the walls, that's a latent defect.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, but I know that, I know. This,
That's
That's what the potential.
that's what potential
That's
is.
the potential.
That, I agree that this is just a
I
bomb.
would never have anyone sign anything that
Mm,
says, potentially there's mold behind the wall, so sign here.
Yeah, listen, guys, I don't like the form. I'm not advocating for the form.
Yeah.
Okay, at all.
Right.
But now that they've brought this up and made this an issue about latent defects, which we've never had before. And it's putting the onus is on members. That's us,
To
guys.
basically disclose everything that they can.
I
I really don't think that there's going to be any legal outcome
I don't
from
know.
a potential wording, but it is very problematic. The lawyers that were putting this together, what they did was they opened up total liability.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
the only thing I would say is the benefit side of it is that sometimes when we are on a listing presentation, we get too fixated on getting the listing, right? And so we're talking about commission, marketing, all those stuffs, because you want to be nice and get the listing. But do you ask questions about the actual condition of the house, right? So you might get lost in like getting the listing and not mention one time the condition of the house if there was ever anything. So hopefully with this in mind, you can be like, well, let's talk about the house. Is there anything, have you had anything significant that you had to
But
fix?
Carol's comment on that, the less you know, the better.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm smiling here.
Because
I've often said, if you don't want me to tell, don't tell me.
yeah, yeah, like that's. you
And I
told me
feel like you
regarding-
can't actually do that with this.
Well, you couldn't fill out that form if
You
that's the
could,
case.
but you could get sued later on.
Yeah.
For not doing
Not
it.
doing it.
Now,
Exactly.
will
Yeah,
it
so
come
that doesn't work.
to a
anymore.
On the
lawsuit
seller's side, on the buyer's side,
years from now?
that's another
We don't
story.
know.
Depends what hat I'm wearing.
Carol,
No, I
if you
understand.
disclose something
Mhm.
and you put the remedy down,
Uh-huh.
and then the buyer wants to go through with the deal, that now should absolve you, right?
Yeah.
Because you've said, here's what happened.
Exactly.
We fixed it. Happens 10 years again later, not my fault, because I told you about it. and you covered
Correct.
it, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So in a way, you're.
And they're recommending that you provide the documentation of the remedy, like you know, your receipts of your contract or whatever. So you didn't get your
So if they
Uncle Guido to
accepted it,
do
they
it.
can't-
You had a contract. to do
Say,
it.
take my house, for example, I was in that one neighborhood, well, one of many neighborhoods that flooded in 2013. So we put in the backflow and the sump pump and all that
Uh-huh.
stuff. So if it happens again 10 years after you buy it, I've disclosed it, told you my remedy, it's not my fault. now.
Exactly, that's
Because you
right.
knew about it. and
That's
accepted
right.
it anyway.
Correct.
100%.
We need to know what the
Alright.
timeline for liability is.
Yeah.
If we
need
can
to know
find
that.
out that information, I
Yeah,
think that's
exactly,
it.
yeah.
cause that's the huge.
I
factor.
don't know.
But-
Call for that. It doesn't, if you're saying.
I don't know if there is a
10 years, but-
timeline for
I don't
liability.
think timing matter.
I don't know.
It's
Well, the next time we have a lawyer in, that's a good lawyer
What,
question.
You're gonna be praying to God that 2 years pass by and you didn't get sued, like.
No, but a lawyer will say, you know that clause, forget now, but basically, you're supposed to go in the first 24 hours and you check all the
Yeah.
plans, make sure we're working.
Yeah.
Merge and not, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
what's that clause? You guys know.
Survive.
Survive.
and-
merge.
yeah.
Not merge.
On closing, so within those first 24 hours, you're checking everything, right? Cause then if there's an issue.
Yeah, you
you
gotta
go
bring it
your
to the
lawyer,
forefront.
And then you don't wait a week, because then they're gonna say, oh, the buyer ruined that appliance by
Yeah.
doing whatever, right? So there has to be
And-
timelines about
And,
this
and
stuff.
every
I don't know.
single thing has a lifespan,
Yeah.
like a roof has a lifespan of
Mhm.
20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
So after that 30 years, Of course, it's gonna start leaking if you don't rem it, get a new roof.
Again.
right? So there needs to be a timeline.
There is, actually for a roof, it's 10 years.
Okay,
No, I'm saying.
okay, wait a
for
sec, guys.
liability.
Okay, hold
I'm
on.
saying for liability.
Okay, hold on.
Take
Monica's up. Monty, go.
Look, it's saying here that, you know, there are latent defects that I know of or potential, whatever. Okay, so you disclose that. And now what? So I have a huge crack that needs repair.
Mhm.
So I've disclosed that. Now what? Do I do something about it? Do they just accept it and say,
Well,
great?
that would be up to the buyer.
Well, yeah, so what am I?
The buyer could ask them to repair, or they
Yeah.
can accept it and
But
deal
where
with it.
on this form does it say what the next steps are?
It doesn't
if I
say,
there's a major
that's not,
crack,
this is
then-
about, this is disclosure.
I mean, the correct
not about
visible
remedy.
is not latent, right?
Okay, so right, okay, so mold behind the wall.
Well,
gonna stop
well,
you
it could be,
from-
a crack could be, it could be latent if you've got all your boxes stacked up there, nobody can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a possible latent. I did have that. They put it, yeah.
So then, okay, so there's a possibility that could be something going on behind, so what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, there's a spot for I was gonna say, well, if it's with the offer and it's signed, then they have but there is a spot for the buyer to acknowledge it, so they
Yeah.
can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The buyer says, I accept it.
But like, do they have to do anything about it?
No, that's not, that's
So by
another, that's,
signing this, are you saying?
No,
you
it's
know,
not.
come after me for
No,
fix
no,
whatever?
all it is disclosure money.
Okay,
It's not remedy.
so then there's not a real problem,
If you fixed it, you disclosed.
or if you didn't fix it.
You're supposed to disclose either way.
You're disclosing.
That you have
Well,
knowledge
then-
of it, either as present or
But
past.
can they come back to you if you don't fix it and say?
No, it's not
You're
that,
just
no,
disclosing
it's
it.
just disclosure.
Okay.
We should
Right.
mark this
They-
one. I have a feeling.
They
it's
sue
going
you
Thanks, honey.
years from now.
I'll,
you're like,
I'll get the
You
form.
signed
to you.
this, so you knew about it.
Right, and
It's your problem,
ultimately,
you
if
assume the
buy
problem.
Property knowing that
Yes.
potentially could be.
So in a way, it's
mold
kind of
behind.
covering.
It's covering the
It is.
seller and you.
But for timelines.
Okay, can we end of this? Because I think we're just going around the same
Yeah.
old
10:35.
mulberry point, exactly. The next one, 311, is the buyer self-represented consent. Okay. And these forms the wordings have changed in all these forms, so today we'll have them updated upstairs for anyone that still uses paper. But there are on web forms, Julio tells me this morning, right?
Yeah, I'm looking
And our
at them.
templates have
They're
been
here.
updated with these correct ones. Our
No.
broker
Sky's
templates.
low.
Our templates have not been
Not
updated,
web.
no, because we have to
Web,
go through create.
Sky's low is up to date. Yeah.
Wait,
Are the
Yeah, yeah,
brokerage
No.
templates on SkySlope?
Yeah.
Or have they?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Except
it-
for
but it's
web
not on
forms.
web forms.
No, because they came out today, actually, they updated.
Okay, and then there is also 312 is the schedule for buyer self-represented. I don't even know what I even put on there. Okay. You'll see on the handout that I handed out first about all the new forms. There's landlord tenant mirrored for everything there. Okay, so use this directory of forms, please, when you are pulling your stuff up to make sure you know what you're doing. Remember, the bottom left-hand corner says when it was updated. But the problem is that we had updates in 2024, and now these are subsequent updates.
Yeah, it says
So,
February 20.
Yeah, so you can't, you gotta, please,
Gotta look at the right-
use that's guide, okay, for your forms. I'm gonna hand out these. This is for what you should do with for DRs, Just so you know what you're doing, hopefully.
I mean, it's easier if you have it in color.
Yeah, I don't print in color, it costs too much money. I'm on a budget, I'm on a budget,
It's different.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on a budget.
No, it's different. color.
Yeah, it's a lighter color.
Everybody look at Carla.
Oh.
Please, two more pictures.
That's right.
I hate my picture thing.
And you're making a gap in it. Okay, go,
I don't know that everybody's in it. I'm just-
that's okay.
It's only the same photo,
It's really just, what's that?
nothing.
The same photo, oh, this is what you said.
But where does it go?
Okay.
Internet.
You can all meet upstairs in my.
Okay, guys, so I just want to say that, listen, make sure about the forms, okay? Because now that we all have them access on web forms and SkySlope, we are responsible for using these forms. Okay, it's really important. As far as the latent thing, I think it's going to evolve in our industry. like the Smiths, hopefully it goes by the way of the dodo bird. You know, I would love to see it go, because I don't like it at all. But right now, to protect myself, I will be using it for the buyer. It's up to you if you want to use it or not. Okay, but at the end of the day, I don't want to end up in a hearing and they want to know why I didn't use it to protect my buyer. Thanks. Okay, any
When you
questions?
tell your
You might look-
buyer to accept the offer, they don't have that form returned to them.
Would I tell my buyer to accept the
Yeah.
offer?
Yeah.
I would never tell my buyer to accept the offer.
No, but would you recommend it? Would you advise them?
So you send that 299 form in, but the seller doesn't sign it.
I would explain the repercussions to buyer. And then it's up to them if they want to accept it. Okay, I'm hoping this will all go away like the Smiths. When the Smiths came out, it was a big kerfuffle. Then it came to lawsuits when it went to the court, and then we all like, oh, none of us are using the Smiths. Okay,
I've used this piece,
I know, he used it with EXP.
but I mean, it's good because it's supposed to cover you because
Uh-huh.
the sellers, if they're lying, right, they're filling the form. They're just giving it to you back.
But it didn't cover you because, well, the reason it didn't cover you is when you presented it to the buyer's agent. It's like you were endorsing this. It's like any document you were giving.
Yeah.
Bye, Monty.
Fine.
So that's the court's view, that you were like endorsing it by
Yeah, but
giving it
the
out.
buyers have to acknowledge it anyway, so. It's,
I'm hoping this will go the same way as the Smiths, this whole latent form.
Can you
'Cause-
put unknown then?
Pardon me?
Can you put unknown?
Unknown.
Like on all those sections, can you put unknown? Like, I don't
yeah, you
know.
could.
Like,
You live there 2 years,
things that I
nothing
think of,
happened.
like, as a
I don't-
seller, like, if you've only lived in the home for 5 years, you can only give information on the home for 5 years.
Correct.
The other information is you're selling your parents' house, you haven't lived there for.
Okay,
20
but that would be
years.
an as-is property.
Okay.
That, if
Yeah,
you're
but
selling
also-
an estate,
If you're
Or-
95 years old and barely breathing, you only live in one room in the house, you're not gonna know anything about.
well, the thing
house.
is that not only that, if I had water 30 years ago, like, do I really remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I think it's a problem. That was
Well,
exactly, that was the analogy they used. Anybody who watched that clip, was 30 years ago, they had water, buyers bought it, ripped down the paneling in the basement, and guess what was behind the paneling? Mold. But the people were living in the house for the last 30 years. They, obviously, it wasn't an issue for them,
And if they don't know, they can be liable for. not
but that they
knowing.
didn't, they had to say that there was water 30 years ago.
And they lost.
They lost.
The seller lost the lawsuit.
But
According to
Carole,
them.
I mean, okay, there was a water, but they may not be that smart, anticipating that.
It doesn't matter if you're smart or not. Doesn't matter if you're smart or not. You have to say anything that happened.
Yeah, so there was a water, they say there was a water.
That's all you have to say.
But they.
It's all,
didn't-
Paul, it's all you have to say. We had water 30 years ago.
and there's some-
Bang.
Okay.
Then it's up to the buyer if they want to move forward.
So there are also instances where the kids take over the parents' homes, right? And they may not have known that there was water 30
You sell the
years
house
ago.
as is.
But what if
But why wouldn't you
they've
just
done
do that
work
anyway,
and stuff?
all the
Like,
time?
why wouldn't you do that all the time then? As is.
Because sometimes as is brings up red flags to buyers. I would say, why are you selling the house as is?
Because I don't want to be liable for it.
Well, there's certain-
Right, so say.
Thanks, Danielle.
So say that 30-year-old child had been in that house all his life, but his parents were in there for like 60 years.
Well,
And
then it's up to you. If I'm a buyer's agent, you're selling the parent, you've got a buyer, a seller, who's the kid and his parents or whatever. And he hasn't lived in there for a long time because has his own family now. I would say to you, Amethyst, why are you selling the house as is? And you would say exactly what you just
But
told me.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's living in the house. He's taken over the house. His parents
He's
have
living-
way, and
Oh.
he's the one that's living in the house with his family or whatever else, but he's been in the house for 30 years because
Well,
he
It's like he bought the house, you're saying. Is the house now his house?
it's now his house. It was, transferred to him. So, but he's been in there, but he doesn't know what happened when he
Well,
was
then,
like
well,
5
no
years
more,
old.
you're responsible for previous sellers.
Well, what do you think you're
Previous
gonna get
owners.
back? You're gonna get it blank, essentially.
Well, Emmett,
was
you're not
nothing-
responsible for previous owners. It's like the parents were previous owners. I don't know what happened before I bought this house. It's when you own the property, it's a seller.
Just write unknown, like you said.
They don't know.
And it's
no.
Wait, okay, wait a sec, guys, Sue.
You really-
When you were mentioning, writing a listing and selling the house as is that still a thing? Like, we can do that?
Uh-huh. Sure, you can always do that.
Okay.
I mean, you could always have been able to do that. When you always have to do that is estates or power of attorney. If
Right.
I'm selling somebody's house under a power of attorney, I'm their lawyer and I'm gonna sell their house under a power of attorney. I've never lived in the house. I have no idea, but so that's always as is.
So how would that play into that form then? You wouldn't really be able to.
The form, you couldn't complete the form because they have no knowledge. They've never had any knowledge.
That's all I want are estate sales now.
I know, right?
I'm just trying to say,
Well, I think
obviously,
there's another issue with the program.
obviously, there's been an issue with buyer consumers with their issues that they've bought properties and there's mold behind the walls or whatever, latent defects. And so it's been a big enough issue that it's be part of, Rico's brought this forward to get OREA to bring this up.
I'm not so sure about that, Carol. Any
Oh, yeah.
house, even a brand new house, when you buy from a builder, they all have problems.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying they don't sue.
Right?
I'm not saying they don't, but
No,
they're saying
I'm
if
not-
the seller knows
I'm just
about
trying
it.
to couch it, like,
Yeah,
in a-
but this is why they're putting the onus on the members, which is us to uncover. There's always been, the act always said is up to the agents to uncover and disclose any pertinent facts relating to a property. This form just brings it one step more in our face.
So we have an excellent case in our condo. And I just wonder what you think about this, whether it's something about latent defect or not, because if you buy a condo apartment, you probably don't even have an idea of using those kind of forms in a condo, okay?
Because you have status
The
certificate.
problem is like this, that in 2004, they instead of replacing the risers, like a hot water and cold water pipes, that man, they use the technique that time was very popular to put the lining.
Yeah, no,
Lining inside, yeah, which is what is the lining? Not asbestos, epoxy lining. Okay. Apparently, they started falling apart. In some cases, there was some still leaking, and some part of this epoxy was going to horizontally to your fault. Suddenly, you don't have a hot water. Those kind of things. Okay, so they decided.
Who's they?
The board, yeah, upon whatever. I was to replace the whole thing again. They replace piping now. And so in some cases, there are 3 lines in the condo, 2 inside. And then when they, because it means that they remove the drywall, they put piping and put it back. But they pay you if you have some damage or something, up to the so-called condo standards. So imagine in corner units, the case may be like this, that they only access for the pipes from the kitchen. They do have to remove the cabinets, your backsplash, put the pipes and put it back. You're then not going to put the backsplash and back again, the same thing. So and they said, who's going to pay for that? Let's say you buy a renovated condo unit. This is what that Mr. Owner, the seller.
No.
Yes, that's okay. So imagine that now you have a listing for sale on that corner unit, which was renovated, nice place, etc. And then obviously you have a so-called status certificate, yes, like in the end. But I haven't seen yet. But in the status, they probably gonna say that there will be a work on replacing. They have to say.
They have to disclose.
Yeah.
But do you think that they're gonna disclose the details that they're gonna rip off your kitchen, which you will be paying after the remedy? And now you're the buyer. So what? Where's the? Who should tell me that? Yes. So do you think that kind of one of those forms?
No.
Should
No,
because
not
the buyer
necessarily.
agent probably have no idea of extensive of the demo or something. So there was already potential problem that
No, those forms wouldn't cover that.
But if you're the listing agent in your building, now you know you gotta.
Yeah, it is, but okay, so that's a good question. So as a listing agent, should I anticipate you think they're gonna rip off your kitchen? You know, what would you? Because going into the details, because there are 3 units,
You just have to declare a latent defect. You don't have to declare anything else. What the impact will be to repair it or whatever. You just have to.
It's in the
disclose.
status, you know,
Yeah,
it's in the status.
disclose that issue that's behind the wall that you can't see. Would it, a
But it-
latent defect is something you can't see that's blocked by a box.
But in this case,
behind it.
yeah, with this
But
form would be
it will
applicable.
depend on
It's
the
in the
language
status.
of the status as well.
Okay, no, I'm just, because obviously you don't see those defects.
No, but it's in the status. Paul. So you don't need it for a condominium corporation like that.
Mhm.
You wouldn't need it because it's covered under status. Is there a legal
That's a good thing.
obligation? Is there a legal obligation? Okay, I'm sorry to stir up a can of worms today. But that's the form that I think is gonna be an issue, and I don't know how it's all gonna play out. All we need to do is be aware of it. And as we keep meeting, we'll see how it goes in the industry. When we get enough deals out there to figure it out.
Working with a realtor is gone,
Yeah, working with the realtor is gone, obviously,
And some realtors are gone too.
and
not enough.
don't send the reconfirmation guide either, so for you to keep.
Yeah, that's just for the agents to keep their information guide. Okay, so it's a changing. We'll keep up.
If you're sending documents by email, you don't have, you don't need the physical, like, signature from,
You don't need a physical, just the email that comes back to you, that's all, you just,
Yeah.
you can print that email, or you can just keep it electronically, however you wanna do it.
Yeah,
And we supposed to be, well, we should be in a constant communication, guys, I think, that any questions, anywhere, we're supposed to be. So then, as a team,
Yeah, exactly.
we'll be
One
better off.
team, one dream.
There you go. You can call me, not after 11 PM, but.
So, you know, the RICO information guide goes first. They have to do all the signing before you do anything else, right?
Yeah.
So if you ever go to a hearing, they're gonna look at the dates on that, right? So don't do your RICO information guide and everything else, because now, especially when you're doing it electronically,
not at the overtime.
not at the offer time.
O2D.ai has the reconfirmation guide as well, and I told them about the changes.
The what?
O2D,
Oh,
the
The app.
system that you can do to write your offers,
Offers.
they have the reconfirmation guide, and I told them of the changes of the buyer rep form. Change.
Okay.
Are other brokerages using it as well, or is it just us still?
I don't know. There's a few more.
Okay. Okay, guys,
Yeah.
good luck.
One quick question about this form, yes.
Yeah.
If this is strategically good idea, that let's say you're getting the listing, but you're not gonna use everything. That you only click whatever you're gonna use, and that is not gonna look so, right, I would eliminate.
I would
those.
take it off.
I personally would use my own. I would use my own because I wouldn't exactly
Because
like
it's
that.
It sounds, and also the word videography, like what is this, like a?
Exactly. That's just for
That's
people
video.
who don't know what they're doing, so that they can use that.
You can just list make it however you want.
Yeah.
I personally would use my own, I wouldn't use that. Because you're right, if you're not gonna do all those things, why aren't you gonna do all those things?
Yeah.
That it begs the question, it begs the question.
Commission fee, like that, I don't know.
7%.
Remuneration.
You want all this?
And
6%.
plus pay my HST on my commission.
Don't worry.
That is much.
HST.
5%.
That's ridiculous too. But these guys wanted to pay a little commission and pay their HST, plus do a multitude of other stupid.
Yeah.
Are you joking me?